Hello, welcome to another edition of Newcast. I'm Michael Van.
I'm Matt Williamson.
I'm Catherine Helmetog.
Catherine rejoined us again today. It's day 2 again at the North American International Auto Show, and this time around we are in a what, Catherine?
We are in a Buick Regal, which is Buick's small car alternative to the Lucerne and the LaCrosse.
And it looks like it's generated more towards the sporting market. And the one thing Rob Einaudi from Car Domain mentioned is that this car was actually destined for Saturn, I believe, not necessarily Buick.
Yes, it's a little bit on the small side for the traditional Buick market in the United States, and it comes out of GM's Chinese studio, which has been producing some really outstanding concepts over the past few years.
That actually makes sense because China is Buick's biggest market, is it not, outside of the U.S.?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Now, I have to ask, when I looked at it, it is labeled as the 2011 Buick Regal, and...
Really?
It's actually not on the market in the U.S. yet. This will be its first model year.
Huh.
So.
And Matt and Catherine discovered the joy of how much ridiculous travel there is in the seats. I'm not sure if you can see, they went to the full granny driving position.
I can't even.
We did.
At the moment.
We did. We have over 4 inches of vertical seat travel, which will be great for Buick's intended market.
What exactly is that?
Now, what I love is, though, what it revealed from Matt. I'm not sure if anybody can make out what this is, but underneath Matt's seat is apparently the gas cap for the vehicle.
Well, I need to go back down because my head is hitting.
Yeah, my head's getting a little crunched. The driving position, actually the flexibility of the seating positions allows for a lot of interesting driving positions, and for the most part, the ability to get comfortable no matter what size you are.
Yeah, I do. I am pretty pleased with the interior design. There are some materials I'm not exactly, thrilled about, because it seems like there's a transition from the dash material, which I actually think is really decent, to this lower plastic material. It doesn't quite have the same grain and touch or feel to it.
And I noticed this earlier, but there's already a nick in this brand new vehicle in the stitching on the armrest.
Fortunately, it's only one. We've been conditioned to expecting kind of lousy interiors from GM, and while this one does have a few spots that we might take issue with that aren't perfect, it is overall representative of GM's new focus on actually building a car that looks good.
Building a car that looks good and actually has good materials, because overall the materials are actually, I would say, pretty close to, or maybe even excellent quality.
Yeah, the leather wrapping on the steering wheel is very nice. It's got good stitching, and actually the design of the steering wheel is pretty attractive. It's small enough that it's no longer like driving a Mack truck like some of our GM cars have been, and
is it tilt and telescoping? It looks like it's a little high and tilted up.
I believe I have not. Oh yes, we've got tilt, telescope, and tilt.
Okay, good deal.
So, and I do like tilt because I like to be able to see the entire gauge cluster in the instrument panel. So getting the steering wheel positioned in the right manner is very important. One of the reasons I think it was all the way up, though, is because people might like that higher seating position. And my legs would have been completely crushed if the steering wheel was down. So.
The one thing I noticed, I knew nothing about this vehicle coming in, so they've got these wonderful little touchscreen centers where you're supposed to learn about the vehicles, which apparently go into a video. There's no specs. They just prattle on these long videos, so my ADD kicked in and I kind of zoned out. But one of the categories was the driver-centric cockpit, and I expected something coming in a little bit different than when I got in here, because while all the controls are accessible very easily by the driver, in my opinion at least, Matt, and I don't know about you because we've talked about this in the past, I don't see anything driver-centric about it. It's very flat, it's very flush, it's very evenly positioned.
Well, remember what we're comparing it to. We're comparing it to a Regal of the late 90s or early 90s rather, and even the late 80s, and those cockpits were at best not pretty.
No, in fact, for Buick, I'm really impressed with this interior. It has the steering wheel.
Please start speaking after the beep.
Catherine needs to stop touching buttons in the cars.
Pardon.
No. Okay, we got that shut off.
Oh. Why is it so loud? Okay, you're not supposed, like, if you're an elderly person driving your Buick and you hit that and all of a sudden some woman's screaming at you.
I don't think this is going to be directed. Although we're talking about the grannies, I think we're going to see.
I don't think just elderly people would swerve into the ditch for that. I think anybody with hearing would.
I know. I'm thinking that this might be a car that's directed toward young professionals. The Lucerne and the LaCrosse have done exceptionally well with young professionals in the States, and I can see this being people who don't want to be seen in their mom's Buick. This would be a good Buick alternative for them. You know, I noticed this piano, it was kind of like dark, shiny trim on the dash, and generally I don't like those things, but this is actually well designed. It's got that kind of Saab look to it.
And it goes into a full rim around the dash.
Yeah, it's actually quite attractive, and it's repeated on the center console. And, you know, I like this interior more as I sit in it because it's admittedly a little busy.
Honestly, this is like a throwback because Buicks have always had that racetrack of wood or whatever around the dash, and this is not in the sense where it's ugly, where they have the horizontal gauge cluster and the huge racetrack around the center. They've incorporated into the design in a modern facade, I'd say.
Yeah, they've been able to evolve.
Exactly.
Evolve the design. So what do you guys think of all the buttons on the dash?
It's a little too busy for me. If you're driving down and you need to get some information quickly, I mean, I think you can get lost.
Well, they have a very MMI-ish looking control for the nav right here, right below the shifter as well.
Meh.
Maybe not so much.
It doesn't do the joystick, you know, you can't click back, forth, and around. So
I have to say, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, I like MMI, but it has to have the right software behind it. If it doesn't have the right software, it's just a knob. It's another iDrive.
Right.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I do have a question that comes to my mind at least. Now, obviously, we're sitting in a very loaded one. There's a Harman Kardon sound system. There's even like a 110 outlet back here. We've got a sunroof, the leather, all sorts of various trim, and I don't know. I'm sure these are all options added with the nav and whatnot, and I don't know what price bracket that drops this into.
I don't think if you're buying a Buick, you care as much about price anymore. I think that
But in this market, I think you care about price no matter what.
And I think that's going to drive people into this car because coming from the European side of automotive, we're used to spending money on a car to get what we want. And I see a car like this possibly kind of making inroads into the lower end of the Euro market where people they're aspiring to a European car, but they're not ready to make the commitment yet. And when you can get all of the features and the options and the Harman Kardon sound system and those things, this might offer an opportunity for them to get in at a little lower price point and still have a lot of those features.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is well equipped. It has, you know, a European-esque feel to it.
Right.
Obviously, we haven't driven it. That might be something we want to do, you know, down the road. But it has the comforts of the European cars and the feature set, but does it have the driving dynamics, as the Europeans like to say?
Right.
Well, and that's even on the little touch screen that I was trying to learn about it. It does say European performance handling or something along those lines. So it is directly targeting the Europeans.
And I think that's where people want to go with newer cars. They want to get the entire package, and driving dynamics are going to be critical.
Apparently there's adjustable suspension as well, because there's a sport and a touring button.
Sport, tour, and what looks like stability control.
And it has a Tiptronic-esque, you know, shift gate to the left-hand side as opposed to right.
I like this shift gate design. We see this in Volkswagen and Audi. Porsche uses the same thing for their auto stick type transmissions. It does not have a gated shifter, and I think the gated shifter on the auto manual boxes is played out.
Yeah.
I think we've seen too many issues with finding neutral, and I do like that they've kept this with the straight.
Yep.
You know, the straight shifting sequence.
It's been years since unintended acceleration, although Toyota's having that problem again now, for real, but it's a different purpose, a different reason.
And it seems to be related to the gated shifters in some way. So I like the fact that Buick is just sticking with an easy-to-drive system, because we need, with all of the other options on the dash, it's nice if there's one thing that works without thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we should probably move on. We've spent a reasonable amount of time in the Buick, and you'll see video. Obviously, you will have seen video throughout the podcast of the car, the interior, and just make your thoughts known.
Thanks very much. I'm Catherine Homatog.
I'm Matt Wallimson.
And I'm Michael Van.
Thanks for watching.